Hello and welcome to another episode of Conversations Around Cultural Heritage, a podcast from the Project Transition where we talk about the challenges of working with heritage of diverse communities. I'm Ana Carvalho and today I have a very special guest, my colleague Ana Sofia Ribeiro at the University of Évora in Portugal. In this episode we are diving into some big questions. What do we mean by minority communities today? And what are the main challenges of bringing digital humanities into the world of cultural heritage? Ana Sofia is going to help us unpack all of this and explore how minority communities, heritage, and digital humanities intersect. Let's get started. Welcome, Ana Sofia. We have been working together in the Transition Project, and we have been using the term minority communities when we talk about the cultural heritage of different communities that live in the Kurdistan region of Iraq and in Yemen. So from your perspective, what has this term meant over time and what does it mean today? And if you think it's still the right wording or should we use a different word?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Anna, for the invitation. Actually, this is a very tricky and complex question, and I could be talking about it for several hours. But I would say that in historical terms, the concept of minority was never used in the grounds that we use today. Mm-hmm. It was mostly related with quantity. But historical societies, especially before the 19th century, were based by definition in inequality and indifference. And they evaluated what was outside the norm. I would say that what we call today a minority or a minority community had its equivalent in the past in what was outside the orthodoxy. That is, what was beyond the normativity. So the criteria of the heterodoxies, what was outside an orthodoxy, could be based in having a different religion, a different ethnicity, a different skin color, a different social status. For instance, the enslaved persons, that could be not a demographic minority, but since they were excluded from the normativity, were considered a minority. And what fits inside the bag of minority has changed accordingly to different political regimes, different regions of the world, and different chronologies.
And what does it mean today, the term minorities?
If we think on what the literature today considers a social minority, a group demographically inferior in a certain community and that shares distinctive social, physical, or cultural characteristics and is in a non-dominant position in terms of political power. So we can see that today the concept of minority, it's much related with the idea of subalternity. Mm-hmm. And it is the acknowledgement that are groups that living in political regimes that are based in the equality of rights are often excluded, not legally, but culturally, and are dominated by a majority of the population.
You are a researcher and professor here at the University of Évora, and you teach digital humanities. So how would you describe digital humanities to your students? And how is digital humanities different from just using digital tools to digitize or access cultural heritage?
I would begin by a literal definition. Digital humanities means the application of informatic methods to the study of human activities, which is the main field of study of all the humanities. More literally, it is the conversion of a reality into informatic code represented by digits, by zeros and ones. So, however, this simple definition is not simplistic at all. It actually should have a bidirectional transformative power. On one hand, it means that there is a transformation of the object of study of the humanities through digital representation and digital analysis. When we digitalize a book, we transform that book. When we digitalize a fragment of a Roman ceramic vase, we transform that vase or a carnival mask or into other kind of thing. On the other hand, we are developing new technological fields and new digital techniques. So both ways should converge not only to answer typical research questions of the humanities, but also the application of digital methods should raise new research questions that extends the humanities field. So, as you said, it cannot be just reproducing digital copies of something or representing a certain reality through digital visualizations. You need to contextualize a digital product in order to the consumer or the data analysts understand what is being seen and actually add layers of knowledge on a digitalization. So also the digital product itself, and this is very important, has to be decodified through what we call metadata, which is data on the data. And that is a fundamental thing for any digital product.
So could you just share an example of a project of digital humanities in the context or applied to cultural heritage?
Mm-hmm. Depending on what the kind of cultural heritage you want to digitalize, you can apply numerous different digital techniques. So the process of doing that is usually made by professionals of different fields working together. So they are every time a collaborative project. And for instance, there is a project that wanted to preserve both the tangible and intangible cultural heritage of the carnival celebrations of Trinidad and Tobago, which has been acknowledged by the UNESCO as intangible cultural heritage. And so they have to digitalize music, photos, masks, written documents, physical movements, and dance performances, and the human experience of all that. So it involved different techniques from digital kinetics, robotics, natural language processing, video and audio contextualization, or 3D representation. At the same time, you need experts to describe them, explain them, and to contextualize them. And all these products have to be available to the general public through digital means and have to comply with what we call FAIR principles. They have to be informatically findable, informatically accessible, informatically interoperable, and informatically reusable. So it's more complex than people think that is.
Yeah. And from your experience, you have been working in different projects. What are the main challenges that come up when working with digital humanities in the field of cultural heritage?
I would say that nowadays we face 3 different kind of challenges. The first one is the technical one, which is the implementation of secure and critical tools of artificial intelligence in doing this. It is still a very unsafe ground. We actually don't know what we are dealing with, but we know that it raises immense potential because it takes less time than the old machine learning processes. But there are ethical and technical concerns on the results it delivers. We don't know what happens to the data. So actually, it's a very uncertain future in terms of technological appliances. I think that we also deal with social challenges, because making the process of developing cultural heritage, digital representations, or even products of social mediation, I think that the future have to include directly the communities that actually produced that heritage or that form of heritage. And we have to involve them in the process of decision making on what should be digitalized, in what way, hearing their concerns and making them directly responsible by managing these products has actually a mean to increase their responsibility in the safeguarding of this digital heritage as well. And I believe it's the path to empower the minority communities, especially. And I believe we also face ethical challenges, because how are we actually making things more available when we digitalize things? What does that mean? Let's say that using digital methods to safeguard the heritage of Maasais in Kenya and making them available and more accessible worldwide. Is it safe for the sake of the community? Is it good for them? Also, it implies using a lot of money. It's very costly to apply digital sophisticated tools. So are we not making those communities even more vulnerable? I'm not sure on the answer, and I think we should think about it.
Mm-hmm. And in your perspective, how can we use digital humanities to help heritage education become more inclusive in terms of representing cultural heritage from these different communities?
When we talk about digital humanities, we are talking, and the discourse is to democratize and empower people from inside the communities to autonomously use these digital tools. So by education, we make them more autonomous to do that. And if they are not technically capacitated or trained to do so, at least they know what it takes to do that. I think that's very important. But for them, we also have to strengthen the education on digital responsibility. I think that education now thinks about on giving the tools and teach how to use the tools, but somehow we have to introduce more humanities on the process. And actually, there are people who does not have a good network connection or good informatic machines. So yes, digitalization means accessibility, but it demands specific training in certain digital tools. And it's a business, and we should not forget that technology is a business as well.
Yes. In your view, how can our transition project, somehow contribute to the preservation of heritage in the Kurdistan region of Iraq and Yemen? How can contribute to this preservation and how it can support somehow or transform heritage education in these regions?
Transition project is especially on building technical capacities to people in Iraqi Kurdistan and Yemen to become autonomous in developing their own forms of minority cultural heritage valorization and preservation through higher education. So, as we have seen in our partners' universities, there are no specific training courses in cultural heritage. So, the transition project is an excellent opportunity to change the higher education curricula in this field in order to have courses, syllabus that makes the minorities visible inside the Kurdish and Yemeni societies. And we have seen that it can be brought through sociology courses, archaeology courses, cultural studies, or tourism degrees, for instance. And I think that through education, future students could understand the cultural, social, and economic, and even political opportunities of acknowledging and promoting their cultural heritage as means to promote peace, diversity, and richness of their cultures inside a very troubled context, which is the Middle East, as we are seeing. And a more inclusive teaching content and environment should, in the long run, transform their societies and making them more inclusive, making the communities feel more visible and empowered. And I'm very happy that we can collaborate and contribute a few to promote that change.
Thank you so much, Ana Sofia.
Thank you.
If you'd like to know more, you'll find some useful links in the episode description. Until next time, thank you for listening.